Well, looks like you guys come back again. I don't know why. You keep coming back every week, interrupting my time. Although, pretty much all my time is my time, as there is never anyone else here. So, anyway, yeah, I guess I can't be mad because I can't say you're interrupting my time because all time pretty much is my time. But anyway, uh, we're doing this right after the game ended. Welcome to the Tonto's Demise Week 5 recap. And whoo! After that Monday night game, I mean, I had no stake in it, but man, I don't know about you guys, but after that game, I need to pour myself a nice cold one. I think I've earned it after going through all that. On the edge of my seat, as was perhaps many of you as well. Because this Monday night game, let's get situated properly here for things. What's going on? All right. Whew. All right. Week 5. The end of week 5 here. This Monday night game had 3 matchups that were up for grabs. I was going to start the recap during the games again, like I did last week, but it didn't seem like things weren't falling in the proper way for that to happen this week, because things were bouncing around way too much. Last week the results were fairly clear as I was going on. And I think since we had 3 matchups all come down to the wire here on Monday night, we will talk about. We said we'll do the boring 3 first, and then and then we'll do the interesting 3 last. And one of the boring ones, conveniently, is the defending champion Springfield Isotopes trying to turn things around and not drop to 1-4 to begin the title defense. And unfortunately, that does not happen this week, as the Topes fall to Yinzer Jags 200.85 to 167.25. This is actually, you guys may not have noticed this, but I've noticed this. This is the second week in a row that the Isotopes fall in defeat to a team that had 2 players score zeros. So Detling still got 200 points with 2 zeros on his roster. Basically 4 or 5 guys there with big performances, and that's all you needed. So 200.85 this week for Yinzer Jags. Josh Allen goes off for 57.5 points. His receivers, Hopkins, Woods, and DJ Moore. Hopkins goes for 20.5. Woods on Thursday night, an even 30 points. Basically his first good game of the year comes when he is playing, against, I got Stafford in there. Even if I had decided to play Matt Ryan, it wouldn't have made a difference in the matchup. Although I'm kind of wondering what's going on with myself, because Detling said, well, I probably would have gotten sick of Robert Woods, and if somebody made an offer for him, I probably would have traded him. Nobody made an offer for him. And I'm thinking, why didn't I try to trade for Robert Woods? I keep trying to get Cooper Kupp, and Josh says no. And I'm like, why didn't you just go for Robert Woods? Then you have Stafford to Woods. It was going to turn around at some point. And I'm like, oh, why didn't I even think of that? Oh, because it's Detling. And when it comes to trades, I don't even look at Detling's team. There's two teams, Detling and Kevin. I don't even look at your rosters because I'm 99% sure there's no way that we're going to negotiate any kind of trade ever. So I don't even look at your rosters. Is basically what I do when it comes to hunting for trades there. But yeah, he went for 30 on Thursday night. DJ Moore, 8.8. Eckler and Pollard. Eckler goes for just under 33. Pollard, 14.3. A lot of threes there. No. Who's your star guy? Kittle. Kittle put on IR. Said, I think I said in the past, a couple weeks ago, maybe last week, week before, one of these weeks before, that Kittle, I mean, as nice as his name is and what he's done in the past, but what has he done for you lately? It's hard to think that he's still one of the top tight ends in the league. He's just constantly either hurt or underperforming, it seems like. That's just not judging him, making a judgment there about him, just looking at the numbers and saying he's just not living up to the expectations that his past performance has set up for us. I think we kind of expect him to perform based on past performance. But the past year or two, he has been mediocre more often than not. I mean, he's had a couple big games, but so do a lot of other tight ends. They'll pop off for a big game every now and then, but other than that, Kittle has been pretty pedestrian in terms of his production. Just the facts here. And you picked up Evan Engram, kind of lucked into a situation there where all their other guys even said got injured, and Engram was practically the only person left. Him and that rookie Tony, I think, were the only guys to throw the ball to in that game. He goes for 9.5 points. Speaking of Giants pass catchers not being out there, you played Galladay in the flex. He got you 0. Instead of going with Cortland Sutton, who I think has been there pretty much the whole year for you up to this point, you pulled him out, I guess because he was playing the Steelers, and he actually got you 20. He would have got you 25 points, and putting this matchup way out of reach. But no, that's what happened. And the other 0 was your kicker, who made 2 PATs, but then he missed 2 field goals and got you 0. Then we have the Tampa Bay defense. Yahoo says 15, but I do believe the correct score was 27, because we bumped you up, looks like 12, exactly 12 points there. All right, so 58 from Allen, 50 from Hopkins and Woods. That's over 100 already. Eckler, 33, 27 from your defense. That's pretty... said those couple guys, despite the 2 zeros, 8.5 from Moore, 9.5 from Engram. Said enough to just get you past 200 this week and easily take down the Springfield Isotopes. Nothing like an ice-cold Guinness. All right, Matt Stafford goes for 47 points. Devontae Adams, a wasted effort in this matchup. He pops off for over 200 yards and a touchdown, 40.5 points this week. Deontay Johnson and Marvin Jones somehow combined between the two of them for only 3 catches. Deontay only targeted twice in that game. Deontay, Big Ben's favorite target, 2 targets in that entire game. He catches both of them. Fortunately, one's for a touchdown, but all for naught there. How did these two guys go for a combined 3 catches? Johnson 15, Marvin Jones, said no Ridley this week. So ended up with only 3.5 points from Jones. Melvin Gordon and Chase Edmonds, 6.3, 4.4. Lousy running back production this year. Just nobody meeting expectations or coming on here. I think pretty much every running back I drafted was just in the hope that one of them would have have a decent season, and they are not. I guess I can't complain too much. Like Edmonds has been consistent thanks to PPR, but I guess he was playing injured this week, and they were taking it easy on him, so not too much there. Dalton Schultz, 14 points. Are we still arguing that I overpaid for him? Still, that nobody else even tried to pick him up? Because he has turned into one of the top tight ends in the league the past, let's see, 3 weeks now. I think he dropped what would have been a touchdown pass in this game too. Could have been a much bigger day for him. Still 14 points, pretty good. In a league where tight end production actually it was all doom and gloom going into the draft that the tight ends are so thin, but production has come. I mean, if you look at some of the players, the tight ends that weren't drafted, Schultz is one of them. A couple other guys. Maybe even if they kind of started off the season a little bit slow. And I just think of this because I was listening to the Red Sox and Tampa Bay Rays game earlier on the radio because I don't have TV anymore, so I was listening to it and doing some cleaning and stuff like that around the house, and was looking at the leftover stickers from our draft, trying to figure out what should I do with it. Probably just pitch them in the trash, but I was just thumbing through them and looking at like some of the tight ends who weren't drafted, and like some of the players, whose names, their stickers are still on the sheet there. I was like, oh, there's Dalton Schultz. There's a couple other guys who are on teams now, and just thinking that as much as it was talked about, all the keepers they weren't going to be at the tight end position was such garbage and horrible. But there's always diamonds in the rough, players who pop up during the year, and so far at least, Schultz has been one of those guys. Even though Gesicki's starting to come around. Not doing bad, but any kind of production from your tight end position, even, besides Waller and Kelsey, it's really hit or miss, basically. But even those guys have had down weeks too, so it's all in a matter of how much importance you put on that position. All right, in the flex, Higgins, 10 points, Blankenship. I see now he's got a little Q by his name. What is going on with this? I pick him back up, and now I don't know if is that why he was missing kicks tonight. I didn't really pay attention to this game until it started to get interesting. We'll get to that. So Rodrigo goes for with the extra fractional points. He goes for 6. And then the Falcons defense picked them up and played them against the Jets this week. They got 20. But yeah, it wasn't enough to get past Ian's or Jags this week. Too many single-digit scores there, up and down the Topes lineup, and close to 10. Numbers in the teens aren't going to do it, even though Devontae went for 40. Basically a wasted effort. Said Woods had 30, Eckler over 30, and Allen went off for almost 60. So that's almost 120 points just right there. That's going to get you, those couple, all you need is a couple players really to go off each week. It's kind of a crapshoot. So unfortunately, that's what happened. This week wasn't enough, and the Isotopes will drop to 1-4. I think they might end up in last place now. And the Yinzer Jags will drop. They will move up to 4-1. But I think Disco will actually stay in first place, despite losing this week. All right, what else was already decided? Biscuits and Porn versus CMC Music Factory. Biscuits and Porn went off this week and probably thought they had the highest score of the week all wrapped up nice and easy with 249.65. But that wasn't to be here after Monday night. But it was way more than enough to, unfortunately, hand CMC another loss. He gets 167.05. So almost 250 for Biscuits. He has Tom Brady in a non-competitive game at all. Goes for 30 completions, over 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, almost 77 points just from Tom Brady. And one of those receivers, Antonio Brown, catches 2 of Brady's touchdowns, goes for 31.5 points. So that is almost 110 points just from those 2 guys. I know we were talking about the Mahomes to Tyreek connection, but this week getting Disco possibly 100 points, the potential to put up 100 points week to week just between those 2 guys. But that is what Brady and Brown did this week. Excuse me. Lamb goes for 18.8 and Devontae Smith 14.7. So good scores up and down this lineup this week for Biscuits. Aaron Jones 18, Zeke 28. Your only single-digit score here. Your tight end Jared Cook, 1 catch for 30 yards, gets you 4 points. Claypool in a flex, 24 points. Mason Crosby, your kicker, even despite missing a bunch of field goals, he still gets you about 12. And then the Patriots defense, I guess what we thought was a dream matchup going in here. If it had been in New England, I think this might have been a different case, but it was in Houston, and they nearly lost the game, came back in the end to win it. Yahoo says 9. Actual score must have been about 21 or so, based on the bump there for your team. But yeah, you nearly, that was probably, I think that would have been the highest score so far this season, but then you were overtaken here at the end of Monday night. CMC, let's take a look at what he had. Kyler Murray, kind of a quiet game, only 38 points from him. Mike Evans, the other recipient of Tom Brady's touchdowns there, he had 2 of them for himself. AB had 2. So actually just behind, only 2 points less than Antonio Brown there for Mike Evans, 29.3. Tim Patrick goes for 16. Mooney, 6.5. Hubbard in there to replace CMC temporarily. He has a good game this week, gets you 21.5 points. James Conner, a touchdown, 10.5 points. Tunyon, only 1.8. Definitely been a disappointment this year as a starting tight end. Basically, he's been under 3 points every week of the season except week 2, thanks to a touchdown catch. Probably was not the best keeper. Putting your faith in him this year at the tight end position. Still kind of surprised that you're still rolling with him. Don't know, you have your bench tight end is Komet from the Bears, who has been single digits. He's been like 4 or under every week except week 1 where he went for 9. So yeah, he's been in single digits. There's been some guys on the waiver wire there, CMC, that you could be picked up. I think Jared Cook, came off the waiver wire there. I think it was Shawshank that picked up Hunter Henry. Would have been a good pickup there. Said Schultz has been pretty productive. A couple guys here. Yeah, kind of surprised you're still rolling with those tight ends that you got. Maybe, I don't know who is still available on the waiver wire, but you might be too late by just kind of not paying attention or whatever. Or being proactive, I guess I should say. In the flex, Javonte Williams from the Broncos there, 11.5 points for him. Kicker, Matt Gay from the Rams, about 9 points from him. And then the Rams defense, Yahoo says 14. Looks like we bumped you up about 9, so 23 approximately from the Rams defense. But yeah, said 167. Basically, you and the Topes basically had the same score. Not bad scores on several players on your lineup here, but said Biscuits pushed 250. Really, there isn't much else you could have done. in this matchup. You figure even if Kyler Murray gets you 60 points, and who else? I don't know who else would really take off. You would have, I mean, you lost by 50, 60, 80, 82 points. So really not much that CMC you could have done this week unless your whole team went crazy. Just bad luck, the way it goes sometimes. But yeah. So with this victory, Biscuits and Porn, he will move up to 3-2. Yet to see TBD what position he will be in the standings. He's currently 4th. I don't know that you will drop. Thanks to your high score, I'm gonna guess that you will stay in 4th place. While CMC Music Factory, he will drop to 2-3. Not sure where he will be, but I believe he will be amongst the 5 teams that should now be 2-3. All right, then we also had From Gags to Riches versus Possum Magic. Possum Magic trying to stay undefeated, moved to 5-0. Unfortunately, none of the undefeated teams were able to hold on and go to 5-0 this week. Possum Magic falls to Gags 184.55 to 135.1. Almost forgot, wanted to cheers to CMC in a sympathy, a fellow defeated player of this team this week. All right, we'll toast Possum Magic here after this, after the review here. So Gags 184.55, Possum Magic 135.1, which I do believe means that Possum Magic, you will be not only get your first defeat, but you will be eliminated from the knockout pool this week because of the Monday night game. So many scores got ballooned up here at the very end that Possum Magic, even if Russell Wilson had scored 60 or 70 points, you actually still would have been eliminated in the knockout pool because the next lowest score is Gags with his 184.55. Because Brian is already eliminated. So yeah, the next lowest score here was Gags' 184.55. So about that's 49 point difference here. So yeah, don't feel too bad, Tree, because Russell Wilson could have scored 60, 65 points and you still would have been eliminated from the knockout pool. Especially considering if Russell Wilson had done that, that probably would have meant an even bigger day for DK Metcalf, who was on Gag's team here. So we'll have to wait and see. You did lose Russell Wilson, one of the big fallouts from Week 5 here. Looks like he's going to miss a month or so, but he's going to be back before the end of the season. Let's see. Seattle has their bye in Week 9, so I'm going to guess maybe Week 10 they're going to shoot for. It's something with his finger, so not hugely serious, but I believe it is his throwing hand there, so approximately 5 to 6 weeks recovery time. We'll see what happens there. You've got Mac Jones and Heineke from the Washington football team on your bench there. Or maybe you'll work out a trade. We'll see what happens. I don't know that there are any. Just take a quick look at what the options are in the free agent market here for quarterbacks. But you got 3 on your roster here. Jameis Winston, Carson Wentz, maybe, as a possibility. I really don't think you're going to take Drew. I'm looking at Drew. I'm looking at the names here. Drew Lock, Geno Smith, who's going to be replacing Russell Wilson. Yikes! There's really our free agent quarterbacks, your options are Winston, Brissett, Wentz, Wilson, Garoppolo, Davis Mills. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Currently, might be the Bears might be going back to Andy Dalton because Fields suffered some sort of injury. Not sure if it's going to keep him out for any time at all, but yeah, you're probably better off just rolling with either Jones or Heineke for these next few weeks here for Possum Magic. So that's a good thing you got those 4 wins early on because it's going to be dicey here going forward these next few weeks here for you, instead with Russell Wilson being out. But it seems like this happens quite often. But how about we talk about the team that won the matchup? Gags, with a team basically almost entirely different from what he drafted. Surprise, surprise. He has Kirk Cousins, 40 points. DK Metcalf, 26.8. Osborne, the Cousins to Osborne connection, not much this week, 4.5 points. A.J. Brown, coming back from his hamstring injury, only 6.8. But James Robinson goes for 25. Zach Moss, 12. Dawson Knox. So who needs Travis Kelce when you got Dawson Knox? Over 100 yards and a touchdown for him, 20.7. Yeah, who needs Kelce? Who needs Gronk? You got Knox, 20.7. Jacobs back from his injury in the flex there. He gets a touchdown, goes for 16.7. Carlson, Raiders kicker, goes for 3 point something. And then the Buffalo Bills defense, another big performance from them, even though they were in Kansas City. Gag says, I don't need another defo. You do have the Giants defense, but they were at Dallas. Gag says, I'm not afraid. I'm going to start Buffalo's defense against Kansas City. I don't care. And they have 4 turnovers. They score a touchdown. Yahoo says 26. And they gave up a ton of yardage and points there. So I believe the actual score was only a couple more. I think 29. A little bit more than what Yahoo says there. But yeah, so about 30. So that's like 70 points from your Buns, 25 from Metcalf. So they were almost to 100. And Robinson 25, Knox 20. Pushing, so getting you up close there to the 200 points. 184. More often than not, that's probably going to get you a victory. 185. And this week it was enough over Possum Magic, who, thanks to Russell Wilson going out, only got you 20.5 points. As you guys may recall, it's been several years now since we eliminated the team quarterback role because it was based on injuries and stuff like that. And this actually, I didn't really watch much of this game, but this game kind of is. I didn't really watch it, so I'm kind of just guessing here mostly from what I've seen and read after the game, that this is kind of an example of why we got rid of the quarterback rule, because I think after Russell Wilson got injured, he injured his finger, I think he still went in the game and played, at least for a little bit. There's an argument, so that sets up the possibility for this argument where Possum could say, I deserve those extra points. Whatever the other quarterback comes in and does, I deserve those extra points because obviously Russell Wilson got injured. He was taken out because he was injured. And Gags could turn around and say, whoa, Russell Wilson got injured, but he went back he stayed in the game, did a couple things, went back in, played, but then they took him out of the game because he was being ineffective. So it's what happened before. There can be a case made where it's kind of a little bit of a fuzzy area where Gags could turn around and say, no, he wasn't pulled because of the injury, he was pulled because he was ineffective. He was ineffective because of the injury, obviously, But if he went back into the game, it's a fuzzy area where I think we're just better off doing what pretty much everybody else does. If your quarterback goes down in a game, it's just the way it goes. It's one game. It's probably not gonna cost you your season. Everybody has options on their benches to prepare for situations like this. And I mean, I've never been involved in another league where if somebody gets hurt, you think that you should get credit for whatever their backups come in and do and things like that there. So, yeah. Because I think there was a little bit of line app chatter about that, so but wasn't paying too much attention. All right, but yeah, so Russell Wilson, only 20.5 points before he got injured there. Perhaps the biggest factor here was Boston Magic. He's got McLaurin, Diggs, and Thielen, a formidable trio of wide receivers, but they all went for single-digit scores this week. McLaurin, 8.5, Diggs, 8.9, and Thielen only 6. So, said you lost by 49. Some better production from those guys, even like 10 more points from each one. Definitely feasible. And then maybe a little bit here down the line, could have changed things. If you had healthy Mixon, maybe things would have been different. But just gags his shirt. It is what it is. Let's see. Chubb and Harris, your running backs, said Mixon actually did play a little bit this week. Thought he was supposed to be out. Hell, looks like he scored a touchdown on your bench there. But Chubb goes for over 150 yards and a touchdown. He gets you an even 27 points. Harris gets you just under 10. Higbee just under 10, 9.5 points there. All these guys here right in a row. Harris, 9.8. Higbee, 9.4. And Myers in the flex, 9.6. Kicker, Suck Up, goes for about 10.5. And then you picked up and played the Minnesota defense. You had Cleveland and San Francisco on your bench. Probably ended up being a better play here for you than those two, even though it didn't make a difference towards the outcome here. But obviously you don't know that going in. Minnesota's defense got you, Yahoo says, 16. I'm going to guess the actual score was 25 based on the point bump there. But yeah, with this victory, Gags to Riches, he will be amongst the group of 2 and 3 teams, while Boston Magic, he will drop to 4 and 1, and I think he will now be in 3rd place. There will be 3 teams at 4 and 1. I think Disco is going to stay in 1st, which means Yinzers will be 2. And basically, just thanks to this 1 week of low score there for you, Possum, you're going to be in 3rd place after this one. But painful defeat. Cheers to you. All right, did we get through? Yes, we got through the 3 matchups that didn't have it, were decided before Monday night. So, all right, let's see. I actually did not write down some of this stuff here last night, so I'm not sure what the differences were between going into Monday night here. Let's do... All right. Ed Lager versus Saquon It Ain't So. Let's see. Ed Lager gets the victory here. Both teams 2 and 2. Final score 198.8 to 191.2. Quite the matchup here. And let's see. Jay had what I thought was an extremely comfortable lead going into Monday night, with Ed just having Lamar Jackson left to go, while Jay had the Ravens kicker, Tucker, and the Ravens defense still to go, and the advantage of about a 65 to 70 point cushion. I thought there was no way this matchup is going to change. Jay's going to get the win. But said I kind of started watching this game near in the fourth quarter there after I finally taking a glance at the fantasy app there and seeing that these matchups were getting frighteningly close. Made things got pretty interesting, and it was pretty fun to watch to see what was going to happen. If Rodrigo makes that kick at the end of the game and there is no overtime, even just that would have changed the outcome to these matchups here. Because even though Baltimore would have ended up losing, Jackson got a lot of extra points there in their overtime touchdown drive. So yeah, if Rodrigo makes that field goal at the end, I think Jay probably holds on to win this one, actually, even though Baltimore would have lost. All these 2-point conversions, too. Tucker only kicks a 20-something yard field goal early in the game. I thought this game was going to be much more of a defensive struggle. I think it kind of started off that way. But you kind of knew what was going to happen if you were watching there. It became obvious there in the fourth quarter and going into overtime. The Colts defense was just getting decimated by injuries, and they could not stop the Ravens no matter what they did. Ravens defense couldn't even stop them either. It said obviously the Colts should have won this game, driving down there at the end to kick that field goal. Just Rodrigo, for some reason, said he's got that Q next to his name now, so something must be going on with him. But yeah, he makes that field goal. There was no overtime, and a lot of things that decided the Dub C Hillbillies matchup there too, thanks to the overtime there. But yeah, I never would have guessed that Tucker would have only gotten 2 point something in this game, which tells me you can't be too afraid of the Baltimore Ravens defense like you used to be. They are a shell of their former selves. If Carson Wentz and the Colts can tear them up this bad, so they definitely are not what they used to be. All right, so Ed Logger basically needed a miracle tonight, and he got it because Lamar Jackson goes for 88.3. I believe our single game record of highest points was Drew Brees with 95 point something, somewhere along the line. Lamar Jackson, game of his probably this is going to be the statistical game of his life. They could do nothing wrong. The Colts defense could not stop him. 37 completions, over 440 passing yards, not to mention his rushing yards, 4 touchdowns, 2-point conversions. They did everything. 88.3. Keenan Allen goes for 13.5. Cooks goes for 5.5. Allen Robinson, 7.5. Swift, 22.5. Gibson, 21. Noah Fant, 5. Saquon Barkley. This matchup actually might not have been as close if Saquon Barkley does not sprain his ankle after getting you only 1 point there before going out pretty early in that Giants-Cowboys game. Your kicker, Bass, goes for, I think it was an even 8 points there. And then, once again, we're back and forth with the Bears defense. They actually played a good game. That's actually two good games in a row for them this year. Even though they're in Las Vegas, who the Raiders were playing pretty well so far this year, but the Bears went in to kind of shut them down. Fortunately for Kevin Bean, it did not cost him a victory this week, putting in Derek Carr, even though he didn't do too much. Chicago's defense, Yahoo says 12. We must have bumped you up pretty good there, Ed, because you must have gotten like 15 extra points there. That must have been 27 from the Bears defense. So obviously that puts you up to over 110 points just from your buns, Jackson and the Bears. Those 22s from Swift and Gibson. Good running back production, but single digits from pretty much everybody else there. But it was basically thanks to Lamar Jackson, just enough to get it done here on Monday night. For Jay, probably thought he had this one wrapped up. Dak gets you 47, just under 48 points. Your receivers, Lockett, Chenault, and Davis, 10.5, 6.5, 8.5, respectively. Derrick Henry, another big game for him. Obviously, he always feasts against Jacksonville. Over 100 yards, 3 touchdowns, 34 points for him this week. Probably the best pick of the first round of the draft this year so far. Let's see. Henderson gets you 17. Pitts finally shows up, gets you 27 points, thanks to being just about the only receiving option this week for the Falcons there against the Jets. So everything kind of fell into place for him this week to have a big game. Emmanuel Sanders, not many catches there, not a whole lot of yards, but he did turn his opportunities, made the most of them, gets 3 catches, 2 of them were touchdowns. He goes for 20.5 points. But then again, the Ravens, your kicker and your defense, Tucker, only 2.5. I believe the Ravens defense final score was 17. So yeah, you got 19 point something from those two guys, and you still lost by 7. So yeah, you were way ahead, 70 points or so going into Monday night. A heartbreaker for sure for Jay. Really, I'm just looking here, and it has Yahoo says 100% favorite on the side of Saquon. It ain't so. Unfortunately, Jay, we will drink to that. But said both of these teams were 2-2. Ed Logger, he will move up to 3-2, while Saquon, it ain't so, will drop and be amongst the group of 2 and 3 teams. All right, another big one here was Disco versus Shawshank. And even though both of these guys had guys going on Monday night, I believe, if I remember correctly, Shawshank had about a 4 or 5 point lead going into Monday night with Andrews and Michael Pittman still left to go, while Disco had Jonathan Taylor. So that even though Shawshank had the 2 players versus 1, Jonathan Taylor definitely a guy who can put up the points to cover that difference there. If Andrews and Pittman don't really do too much, which they are prone to do from time to time. So Andrews has been about a 10 to 12 point scorer here most weeks, and Pittman, same thing. Expect about 12 points from him based on his production, between 12 to 15 points. So yeah, that means you would have needed all the production that Taylor basically gave you. And he started off great, got you like a 76-yard touchdown catch. So not only did he get the long touchdown bonus, and it was you got the points for the catch, plus the yards and a touchdown. So that was like 15, 8, like an 18-point play just for you right there, which is where, and then Taylor did score another touchdown here, but so even though it seemed like Disco had a pretty good chance to cover that difference there, Shawshank says no way, as Mark Andrews has one of his best games of his career probably, and this one ended up being not even close by the end, as Shawshank Athletics says, Biscuits and Porn, you thought you were going to get the highest score of the week, highest score of the year so far. Dikembe Mutombo, no. Shawshank comes in and gives you the finger and says no. He gets 200. He ends up with 252 points, 52.4 points. While Disco, unfortunately for you, you go down in defeat despite scoring 220.5 points this week. Disco, your first loss, you were trying to go to 5-0 as well. So both undefeated teams suffer their first defeat. You can't feel too bad, Disco, about this one. I know you want to win every single week. A lot of us, most of us, if you're not playing to win every single week, I don't know why you're playing anyway in the first place. But Disco, man, this situation, you just gotta tip your cap to Shawshank and say good game because he earned it. Really, nothing else to say about this. There's just not much you can do. So it's a tough one. Anytime you score 200 points and you lose, it always really stings. But unfortunately, that's just the way the cards fall sometimes. And like I said, you tip your cap to Shawshank, tell him good game, and you move on to the next one. Shawshank, let's take a look. Justin Herbert, almost 76 points this week. Just missed some extra points there for the 400-yard bonus. He had 398, 75.8 points for Herbert. Cup, Jefferson, and Chase. Herbert had a long touchdown bonus, but it was to Disco's receiver, Mike Williams. There were pretty much all of the long touchdown bonuses were in this matchup between these two guys. I think there were 5 of them, and 4 of them were in this matchup. Williams, Taylor, Herbert, and Chase. So Cup, Jefferson, and Chase. Cup 16.2, Jefferson 19.5. Chase, he had one of those long touchdowns. He gets you just under 34 points this week. Edwards-Helaire sprains his knee, goes down in this game. Didn't really do too much before that. Gets you 3.5 points. Fortunately, there it didn't cost you, but we'll have to wait and see what you're going to do going forward. You also had Dalvin Cook out this week. I'm going to guess that was more precautionary. Looks like the Vikings have one more game until their bye week, so maybe they will hold him out and let him get healthy to come back after the bye week there, so you might be without Edwards-Helaire and Dalvin Cook for another week or two. Just taking a look, the only other running back on your roster currently is Roundtree, the backup for Eckler, who scored 0 points this week. So you're probably going to be looking for somebody off the waiver wire or making a trade here. We'll see if Dalvin Cook plays this week coming up. Like I said, though, said no Dalvin, no problem. 252 points this week. But yeah, it looks like you're going to be without Edwards-Helaire for a little while. If I was Minnesota, I would probably be holding Dalvin out through the bye week, which is only one more game for them. So we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, I do not speak for the Vikings organization, but I would assume that would be the smart thing to do, but we'll see if that's what they do. Mike Davis, you plugged him in, 12 points this week. He's actually scored a touchdown. Good matchup for anybody against the Jets there. And the big difference here, you had on Monday night Mark Andrews and Michael Pittman in the flex. Andrews said perhaps the best game of his career. He goes for 41.7. Almost 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, 11 catches, at least 1 2-point conversion in there. What could have probably should have been a much closer matchup with Disco here, as it ended up being a 32-point margin of victory. Pittman, he goes for almost not almost 100 yards. He gets 6 catches, almost 90 yards, scores a touchdown, gets you just under 21 points there. So looks like real quick 62.6 from those two guys. So you were winning by like 4. So that's what, like approximately about 66 points was the margin that Disco needed to make up, even though Jonathan Taylor gave it the old college try, scoring 35, almost 35 points by himself there. Wasn't enough to keep him in the game. Really just said career games for these guys. It got silly near the end there, out of hand. If you had any of those guys in this team in the game there. So for Disco, said 220 points, nothing to be ashamed of here. Mahomes, almost 53. Tyreek, 14.5, kind of a quiet game there for him. Godwin, 14. Mike Williams, thanks to his long touchdown bonus, he actually got you up to over 42.5. Jonathan Taylor, with his long touchdown bonus, got you 34.5. Fournette goes for actually 21 points, scores a touchdown, has a handful of catches there. Waller ends up being one of your lowest scorers, only 8.5 points from him. Beckham Jr. in the flex, only 4. Prater, your kicker, gets about 3.5. And then the Carolina Panthers defense, kind of a surprising outcome here. At home against Philadelphia, they lost the game. They did have a couple turnovers. They got you a safety. Yahoo says 16, but I believe we bumped you up about 9 or so. I'm going to say it was like 25. So not a bad performance from Carolina, but probably expecting a little bit better from them, at least to have won the game, especially at home there against Philadelphia. So yeah, that's what happened with Disco. Said 220 points, nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to hang your head about. Just the way it goes sometimes. Losing with 220 points, Disco. Cheers. Yeah, so with this victory, Shawshank Athletics avoids falling to 1-4. He's now 2-3. He's amongst the cluster of 2-3 teams there. And Disco, he will drop to 4-1. But I believe, thanks to his big score this week, that will keep you up there in first place. And then what ended up being the closest matchup that came down here on Monday night, even though Dubsy Hooligans did end up pulling away near the end with that touchdown catch, the game-winning touchdown catch going to Hollywood Brown. He had just squeaked it out thanks to the overtime play there. Dubsy versus Hillbillies on PCP. A battle of 1-3 teams, which means one of you was going to drop to 1-4 after this week and be in a pretty difficult situation going forward. And Dubsy Hooligans, again, almost entirely thanks to Rodrigo missing that field goal at the end of the game and giving the game overtime, gets Hollywood enough points to get past Hillbillies. It was much closer than this, said, until Hollywood got the game-winning touchdown there to put it away for sure. Dubsy Hooligans, 192.7 to Hillbillies, 184.65. All right. Dubsy Hooligans, despite trading Patrick Mahomes away for Jalen Hurts, says, I don't need either one of those guys. They're both garbage. I'm going to put in Derek Carr. Derek Carr, fortunately, does not cost you this matchup. Probably should have. He only got you 30.3, which was way less than 15 points less than Hurts, and 25 points or so less than you would have gotten if you had still had Patrick Mahomes. Just pointing that out because even though you felt like you had to go and get Cordarrelle Patterson, if you had played P. Ryan, who was already on your bench, and you knew Mixon was going to be out this week, you could have plugged him in, and the point difference between Patterson and P. Ryan was 0.1. So you could have not made this trade, still had Patrick Mahomes on your roster, and the outcome would have been no different here. So you had all these options here, things lining up for players that you could have used. And you didn't even start Hurts, the quarterback you traded Patrick Mahomes for. But we've talked about it enough, I think, already, haven't we? Said Hollywood Brown. Let's see. Brian was ahead. I don't think Brian had anybody on Monday night. Said you ended up winning by 8 points or so. So the difference was about 23 or 24 or so going into Monday night, what you needed from Brown there. So, obviously he's capable of doing that, but he's also capable of going out and having complete duds of games here, though. So, definitely matchup that could have gone either way. Obviously, if there was no overtime, the matchup goes the other way, and he needed those extra points in overtime to get this matchup in favor of Dub C. Brown actually he needed about 24. He got you 33.5. Crowder, 8.5. Amari Cooper, 15. Patterson, 18.5. Kareem Hunt, perhaps the best player that you've traded for so far of all the things that you've done here. 26 points from him. Travis Kelce, 17.7. Mitchell, the running back from the 49ers here, back this week. Kind of watching that, obviously, because I have Sermon. Mitchell basically got all the actual rushing attempts from the running backs. I think Sermon only got one, but for some reason, they were letting Trey Lance. He had like twice as many rushing attempts as all the running backs here in that game. That's not a sustainable method for the 49ers there. Especially they're a team that it surprises me because they've been a team that in the past few years traditionally thrives playing good defense and running the ball down your throat, which is why I wanted to get Sermon in the draft at the point where I took him because I had traded away the picks in the pick in the next round there. So even though it probably seemed like a reach for him at the time, just knew that I wasn't going to have a pick for quite a while. So that's why I ended up taking him there. Also because Jay took Aaron Rodgers. But I digress. The point is, San Francisco is a team that runs the ball, and so they traded up to get Sermon. So thought he was going to come out and be like the guy for them this year, but that has not fallen into place either. Mitchell said this was kind of a surprising performance from him, even though coming back from injury. Said Lance ended up being the leading rusher on the team for this week, attempting, I believe it was like twice as many attempts as their running backs. But like I said, there's no way that they can keep doing that. Lance will get killed. That's just not. I assume it's just because he's a rookie tossed in there and isn't quite sure what all he is doing exactly yet until he figures that stuff out. Might be a little bit of time. Who knows how long Garoppolo is going to still be out. I assume they're going to throw Garoppolo right back in there as soon as he is healthy instead of Lance there. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Mitchell only goes for 8.2 in the flex. Koo gets you about 12 or so, and then the Dallas defense picked them up, played them finally. Played somebody else besides Washington. Let's see, they scored a touchdown, had a couple turnovers there. Yahoo says 18. We didn't bump you up too much, so the actual score must have been about, we add maybe 6. I don't think you had any long touchdown bonuses. So the actual score was probably 24 for the Dallas Cowboys defense. But yeah, thanks to the overtime session and Hollywood Brown, gets you just enough to get past Hillbillies and give him that 4th defeat this year. Burrow, he had one of those long touchdowns. He got you 48 points. Your receivers, Debo, Boyd, and Beasley. Unfortunately, Burrow's long touchdown did not go to Boyd. It went to Chase. That would have helped you here. For the Hillbillies, just taking a look at your bench here to see if there's anything you could have done differently to change the outcome of this matchup. Not really, because you, Brian, your bench looks like a war zone. I mean, you got the 2 guys on IR. Now Smith-Schuster out for the year. Carson's got an O. Chark's out for the year. Daniel Jones, he got concussed. Yikes. Your entire bench is rough. We need about 8 IR spots to try to accommodate you here going forward here. So, I mean, you still got your starting lineup basically intact, but going to be interesting to see what you're able to do going forward. You got Debo, Boyd, and Beasley. Debo, 16 points, a rushing touchdown for you there. So unfortunately, in a matchup like this where it came down right to the wire and you ended up losing by a little bit, said Boyd, he only got you 6.5 points, and Beasley only got you 1.5. So any kind of decent production from those 2 guys, like normal you would expect, this matchup probably goes the other way, as Hillbillies probably should have pushed 200 points this week. Kamara, 2 touchdowns for him, just over 29. Najee Harris, just over 25, over 100 yards and a touchdown for him. He's got a Q next to his name now, I see, but I do believe it was just cramping at the end of that game. They said it wasn't actually a serious injury there, so he should be okay going forward. Also, a big factor here, another quiet game from Hawkinson, only 4.2. Seems like defenses are focusing on him and taking him out of the games, making the Lions rely on their other guys. Not a bad strategy in real life football, but it definitely hurts when you're counting on him in fantasy football there. This matchup would never nearly have been as close if Dalvin Cook had played, but he ended up being out, and at the last minute there, you plugged in Madison, who got 29.3 points this week, over 100 yards, 7 catches, a receiving touchdown. Almost 29.5 points from him. Would have been about 13 points better than Damian Williams, who you had in the flex, I think, pretty much all week, and probably would have played. Said this matchup would not have been nearly as close without the extra 13 points there from plugging in Madison at the end there, but unfortunately wasn't quite enough. Gotta blame your receivers there, can't blame your running backs. 30, and 25 from your running backs. That's 85 points from those 3 guys. You'll take that every single week if you can get it. No question. Your kicker, Cleveland, McLaughlin, whatever, gets you about 10 or 10.5, 11 points. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, not a bad game at home against Denver there. Yahoo says 11. I'm going to guess it was 17 or so from the actual score there. But yeah, so this matchup really got close enough that it could have gone either way, and came down to Hollywood Brown needing a point total that he is capable of, but not always going to get. I mean, asking for 25 points from a wide receiver is always going to be kind of iffy, because that's a pretty high point total. But he said he caught 2 touchdowns and was able to get it there enough for the Dub C Hooligans. Again, basically just thanks to that overtime. Hillbillies said Boyd and Beasley let you down this week, and Hawkinson said those single-digit scores there. Even though it said it was an 8-point difference, we've had matchups come down to 0.8, so, or less than that. So really, we can sit here and say all these different things that could have gone differently, coulda, woulda, shoulda, but they did not. Things went the way they did. And unfortunately, Hillbillies on PCP, they will drop to 1-4, and Dub C Hooligans will be amongst the 2-3 crowd. All right, so that ended up being a wild, wild finish. Brian, cheers to you in defeat there. We will finish that off. Yeah. So, yeah. Again, I said I wasn't even paying attention. Wasn't even planning on watching the Monday night game. Didn't really care what was going to go on. Figured the only matchup that was going to be interesting was Disco versus Shawshank there. Never, but it took. Said you got 88 points from Lamar Jackson. One of the highest point totals you'll ever see in our league. I don't know. I know Drew Brees at 95 was definitely the highest. Was this the second highest? I don't know for sure. We've had people push 85 in the 85 to 90, that like 87, 88 point range. I think Drew Brees did it also at some point there. I think Dak might have got pretty close there last year. Early on, if you remember last year, early in that season before he got hurt there, the Cowboys were getting behind by like 20 points every game, and he was just throwing the ball all over the place and putting up huge fantasy scores last year. He probably had a game or so. You could probably look back, maybe take a look at the Tonto's Facebook page and see that all the scores from the previous year's weeks are posted there, just to take a look and see. But I don't want to say for sure that Lamar Jackson's 88 points here was the second highest point total we've ever had. But if it isn't, it's very close. So, and that's ever in almost 20 years of the league. This happens maybe, obviously once every decade approximately. So, yeah, everything just kind of fell into place there. If you had Ravens on Monday night, they basically saved your ass. Ed, Shawshank, and Dub C. Brown, Andrews, and Jackson saved your asses this week here. So, yeah. Possum Magic, again, was the one eliminated from the knockout pool this week, unfortunately for you. Wasn't much you could do here. That Monday night game ballooned a lot of scores here, up over 200, or if not close to 200 here. So teams that are already eliminated from the knockout pool: the Isotopes, CMC Music Factory, Hillbillies on PCP, the Dub C Hooligans, and now Possum Magic. All right, so we're gonna have three teams here at 4-1. I believe Disco will stay in first place because even though he was about 8-9 points behind Yinzer Jags overall, you outscored Yinzer Jags by 20 this week. So that means you should stay in first place by about 11 points or so. And Possum Magic, he'll be 4-1. He will drop to third place. 3 and 2 teams are going to be Biscuits and Porn. So he should stay in fourth place there thanks to his big point total. Said Saquon at 8, so he'll drop to 2 and 3. Ed Logger, he will be 3 and 2. So yeah, those are the only two who will be 3 and 2. Biscuits and Ed Logger. Teams that are going to be now 2 and 3. Saquon at 8, so CMC Music Factory, Gags to Riches, Shawshank Athletics, and Dub C Hooligans. That's 5 of the teams there. And then 2 teams will be 1 and 4. That would be the Isotopes and Hillbillies on PCP there. So, said Hillbillies and the Isotopes down but not out. You're only one game behind half the league, 1 and 4 to 2 and 3. But we're getting to the point here where we're getting into the meat of the season. going to start having bye weeks here next week. So yeah, if you're the Topes or the Hillbillies, time is running out to start turning things around, and or else you're going to be kissing this season goodbye real fast. But said the only bright spot looking forward is that a lot of teams, almost said 5 teams, are only 1 game ahead of you at this point. So yeah, it's basically a big mess in the middle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams are going to be either 3-2 or 2-3. So only a 1 game difference between there. Let's take a look and see if we can have here coming up in week 6. See how many of those teams are either 3-2 or 2-3. Let's see how many teams could end up being. How many of those teams could end up 3-3 after this week? Let's see. We got the Topes versus Ed Lager. Let's see. So he's going to be 3-2. The Topes will be fighting to not go 1-5 here. So Ed Lager could possibly drop back to 3-3 if the Topes can turn it around and get a victory. CMC versus Gags. Both of those teams are 2-3. So someone there is going to go to 2-4. We got Disco versus Possum. Let's see. Both of those guys are 4-1. So obviously one of you guys is going to get to 5 wins already. And then we've got Yinzer Jags versus Dub C. If Dub C can win, he'll get to 3-3. And that would drop that. Well, definitely would still be 4-2. Let's see. Hillbillies, 1-4, trying to avoid 1-5, but he's got Biscuits versus Porn. Biscuits and Porn, not versus Porn, although that might be even more interesting than Biscuits and Porn. Biscuits versus Porn. So that's going to be a tough matchup for him. Although you always kind of want to play a team after they just went off, because then it's hard to have guys go off like crazy like that multiple weeks in a row here. But going to be a tall task for Hillbillies on PCP this week to not drop to 1-4 or 1-5, I should say. And then we got another battle of 2-3s, Shawshank versus Saquon. It Ain't So. One of those guys is going to be 2-4. So yeah, we're not. The way matchups fall this week, there is not much possibility of 3-3 teams after this week. So we could have some separation here developing between the top and the bottom here. Instead of getting tighter, it might get a little bit more separated here after this week coming up here. So, all right. Whew, talked way too long already. Not sure how I managed to do that. So, yeah. So you lost Russell Wilson. Saquon went down with an injury. Were there any other notable things? Waiting for the league page to load here. In terms of injuries, I think those were the big things. So we'll see. So Juju went out for the year, but Brian, you weren't really using him that much. He wasn't really doing much to begin with. Let's see. Yinzer Jags said you lost Galladay. You lost Kittle. Kittle's on IR for a while. So you had to pick up a tight end there. So, Shawshank, you lost Edwards-Helaire for a while. Said Tyreek and Godwin both have Q's next to their names, but I don't think it's believed to be anything serious for those guys. Said Barkley sprained his ankle. He'll be out for a little bit. And, yeah, Russell Wilson, the other big one here, unfortunately, for Possum Magic. This week, going forward, but said none of those injuries really, none of the season ending, except for Juju, but he wasn't really doing too much to begin with there. So Russell Wilson will be back. Saquon will be back. So some important injuries to some guys here, but nothing that is crippling to your teams there. So, all right, that's pretty much it for week 5. I'm trying to undecided if I will upload this now or wait until tomorrow morning. Doesn't really make a difference. Don't really think anybody pays much attention anyway. So, yeah. If you are and you gotten to this point, thank you for listening or watching or whatever it is you do. Good luck to everyone here coming up in week 6. Hopefully, all of your players and teams meet or exceed expectations. Nobody gets hurt. Hopefully, Russell Wilson makes a magic recovery and comes back and plays. Maybe Saquon, magical recovery, all these guys. Never want to see, say, teams playing with backups, but that's why we have, the longer drafts. That's what the importance of those late rounds of the draft and managing your team with free agency and stuff there. Even so, when one guy goes down, even though you've got some people that may not be as good, so people always come out of nowhere every single year. So it is important to keep your team properly managed there, so you can navigate your way through some of these injuries that are going to happen. You never know who's going to get hit with it every single year. It's always a couple people. You just always pray that you're not one of them. Sometimes you are, and sometimes you dodge the bullet there. So, yeah, all right. We will see you guys back here in what should be an interesting week 6. Like I said, it has got the potential with the matchups here to create some real separation between the top and the bottom. I was kind of hoping looking into the teams for week 6, that there were going to be more possibilities to have teams be 3-3 after week 6, but it doesn't look like it's going to shake up that way. So, yeah, it's going to be always fun, and we will see what happens if we'll see if Possum, Yinzer Jags, and Disco. I think 2 of them are playing each other, so one of them will be definitely 5-1. We'll see if Yinzer Jags can pull away a little bit further, and if the Hillbillies and the Topes can prevent themselves from basically falling out of playoff contention. 1-5 basically means you have to win practically all the rest of your games going forward here, and it's just not living in reality, I think, if you're going to hope for that stuff. But Brian did it last year. He was 0-4 and ended up making the playoffs here. So anything can happen, and usually it does here. So I am rambling on enough, way more than enough. I guess it was the beer loosening the tongue, I guess you could say. But anyway, tacked on an extra 4 or 5 minutes here than I wanted to, just rambling about nothing important here. So, all right, guys, we will see you back here again next week when you interrupt my book club, and we will see if Detling has a baby. We will see how the Gags and Brian podcast goes. Maybe we will have to have a league vote to see if it should be Brian and Gags all the time, which, that's a vote that could go either way. We'll have to wait and see how things play out. But yeah, all right, guys, good luck to everyone. Take care, and we will see you again here next week to wrap up week 6. Thanks.